Hi, good evening everyone. Today I am going to tell you about 17 Sustainable Development Goals which have been taken by the member countries of the United Nations in 2015 and how far these goals have been achieved by July 2024. Okay, so you all know that the United Nations adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals which are called as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet. Okay, so this is the two main aims of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are: number one, international peace and prosperity for people and planet. This is for the first time since 1992 the United Nations have given too much emphasis on planet, particularly the plants and life underwater. Okay, so at its heart are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which are an urgent call for action by all the countries, both developed and underdeveloped, or maybe developing countries. So in a global partnership, right? So the Sustainable Development Goals are those goals which were supposed to be achieved by 2030. So it was a goal for 15-year period. Okay, so before taking up the Sustainable Development Goals, I would like to say that in 1992 at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, more than 178 countries adopted Agenda 21. Okay, that was a comprehensive plan of action to build a global partnership for sustainable development to improve human lives and protect the environment. Next, member states, all the members of the United Nations unanimously adopted the Millennium Development Goal at the beginning of millennium, that is in 2001. And in September of 2000, they sat in the headquarters at New York, and in that summit that led to elaboration of the 8 Millennium Development Goals, which were supposed to reduce extreme poverty by 2015. But you see, almost every time the United Nations takes up the goal of reducing or eliminating poverty, hunger from the world, but we are far from achieving these goals. But how far we have achieved, and what are the constraints standing in the way of achieving the goals, and what are the problems, and how we can overcome those problems. All those things will be discussed in this video. So next, the Johannesburg Declaration on Sustainable Development and the plan of implementation adopted at the World Summit on Sustainable Development in South Africa in 2002 reaffirmed the global community's commitments to poverty eradication and environment, and built on Agenda 21 and the Millennium Declaration by including more emphasis on materialistic partnerships. Okay, and also the global leaders gave emphasis on multilateral cooperation and partnership. So at the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development Goals, Rio Plus 20 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in June 2012, member states adopted the outcome document, The Future We Want, quote, The Future We Want, in which all the countries decided inter alia to launch a process of development, a set of SDGs to build upon the MDGs, and to establish the UN high-level political forum on sustainable development. Okay, so in 2013, the General Assembly set up a 30-member open working group to develop a proposal on the SDGs. In January 2015, the General Assembly began the negotiation process on the post-2015 development agenda. The process culminated in the subsequent adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, so this was the background of Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the members of the United Nations. Now I would like to say what are the 17 sustainable goals. Okay, so in short I will mention those sustainable development goals one by one. The first one is end poverty in all its forms everywhere. So the United Nations unanimously adopted the resolution or it's a goal. The first one was to eliminate poverty in all its forms from everywhere in the world. Okay, so number one was poverty eradication. Okay, number two, end hunger. Still in the world, so many people lie on the bed without having food, square meal. Okay, so this is a serious problem. That is why the government, not government, the international government rather I would say, to the United Nations and the member countries adopted the second goal to end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Number three, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Okay, next, number four, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So not only education, quality education, which is the most important thing for global change, because education is the backbone of the foundation of a nation. That is why the United Nations gave too much importance on ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Okay, number five, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. The United Nations member countries seek to provide gender equality and empower all women and girls everywhere in the world. Number five, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Number seven, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. Number eight, promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. United Nations gives emphasis on decent work, okay, and promotes sustainable and inclusive, sustainable economic growth for all. So this is one of the greatest desires of the youths of the developing countries, particularly India. Number nine, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. Okay, number 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. Number 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. Number 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production presence. Number 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Number 14, conserve and sustainable use the oceans, seas, marine resources for sustainable development. Number 15, protect, restore and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity losses. Okay. Number 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Number 17, and the last one is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnerships for sustainable development. So, in these goals, almost everything, every sector have been taken up by the United Nations. I would like to say that these goals were these goals are so extensive and so vast, and it is so important that all the countries, both developed and developing countries, have adopted to attain or to achieve these goals. Not only that, with these 17, to achieve these 17 sustainable development goals, the United Nations has taken 169 targets, and there were 3,972 events. And if you see the website of the United Nations, you will find that 1,351 publications have already been made since 2015. Okay. Now, I told you about the goals, and I would now like to say that how far the goals have been achieved by the United Nations. Okay. So, here it is very not the picture is not rosy, rather it is very rather it is shabby, because so many reasons are there behind this. I am not going in detail, but I will say in short how far we have achieved these goals. Okay. So now every year, actually since 2016, after the adoption of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations General Assembly publishes its report, progress report, every year, and the last report was published in July 2024 from 2023 to 2024 July. Okay. So from the report, it comes to light that that in the second half of the journey of the United Nations to 2030, it signs a determined, sustained global comeback is still a distant dream. Okay. So the early years of SDGs implementation saw slow but steady progress on some critical SDG indicators. But since 2019, when the global pandemic COVID-19 appeared, since then there was problem of achieving these goals, because at that time the question of survival of the humanity was the first and foremost thing. Okay. So not only that, COVID-19, along with COVID-19, you can say a growing number of conflicts, geopolitical and trade tensions, and ever worsening effects of climate change have combined to leave the SDGs in peril, and massive shortcomings in our global economic and financial systems, coupled with historical injustices and the weakening of global solidarity, means that developing countries and the world's most vulnerable people are bearing the brunt. Okay. So it is highlighted in the latest report of the United Nations that the pandemic and other factors led to 23 million more people living in extreme poverty and 123 million more suffering from hunger in 2022 compared to 2019, widening the gap in per capita income growth between the poorest and the richest countries. While some health targets have improved, overall progress in global health has slowed since 2015. So, progress on education, which is the foundation on which everything depends, remains of grave concern, with only 58% students worldwide achieving minimum proficiency in reading at the end of their primary schools, and only 1 in 5 young people neither in education, training, nor employment. The 2030 Agenda's commitment to achieving gender equality remains a distant objective. The limited progress on achieving gender parity in public life and managerial roles, and persistently high levels of violence against women and girls. Almost everywhere you will find that women are discriminated, particularly the women of color, women from poor countries, women from below poverty line, women of lower castes here in India and like this country are the victims at the hand of the upper caste and rich people. Okay, so all the while violent organized crime and illicit arms trafficking continue to plague numerous countries, posing paramount security threats. And with the Russian invasion of Ukraine now in its third year, a brutal war now taking place in Gaza and conflict in Sudan yet to show signs of easing, the number of forcibly displaced people worldwide has reached an unprecedented 110 million. Can you imagine? So, between 2022 and 2023, civilian casualties in armed conflict increased by 72%. So, this is a huge huge population who have civilian population who have become the victims of armed conflicts, which is growing around the world. And it seems that the Security Council is not able to stop violence, arms conflict, and tension between and among countries. Okay. So, despite these challenges, there remain glimmers of hope. This report of the United Nations demonstrates that progress is being made on issues such as reducing the global infant mortality rate, okay, the incidence of HIV infections, and the cost of remittances, and on increasing access to water and sanitation, to energy, and to mobile broadband. In addition, behind the global trends, many countries are pursuing SDG transformation with real determination, and they are making tangible progress. What's more, governments remain united behind the 2030 Agenda. This was one of the key takeaways from SDG Summit in September 2023. It is essential that we protect this commitment by taking the critical steps needed to deliver transformative progress between now and 2030 at much greater speed and scale. Okay, so what we need to achieve the goals. So this is the situation I told. Now I would say what are the shortcomings that are posing challenges in achieving these goals. So if we are to achieve the sustainable development goals, we need peace first. Without peace and tranquility in the world, there can never be progress. Peace and progress are correlated. If there is no peace, there can never be progress in one's life. in one society, in one country, and in the world as a whole. So peace should be established at any cost. But who will do this job? The United Nations Security Council is entitled to keep global peace, right? But there is a section in the resolution of the United Nations Charter where it is said that the big powers, big five powers, that is United States of America, China, Great Britain, and the permanent members of the United Nations, they have United Kingdom, France, they have their veto power. If any of these five countries or big, or those countries who were as a part, who fought against the Axis power in the Second World War, they became the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. And if any of the members of these five members of the Security Council, permanent members of the Security Council, gives veto or puts any objection, the resolution or the decision cannot be implemented or effected, or no steps can be taken against any country. If all the five countries, along with them, out of 15 members of the Security Council, if there is not, if the 9 members do not agree, so to make a resolution, to take an action against a warring country, United Nations Security Council needs at least 15 members agree. 15 members support. Okay. If any of the permanent members do not support or do not agree to the resolution against a particular country, then the decision cannot be implemented. So this is the veto power. So it seems to me that only due to veto power of the big five countries, the United Nations Security Council is failing to keep global peace. Okay, and they are failing to stop international war. You see, Russia attacked Ukraine. It has been going on for last 3 years, but Security Council only taking resolutions, but it could not take any action against Russia, because Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council, and definitely Russia will not support any resolution against itself, right? So, and secondly, you see, in another word, Palestine, Gaza, right? So Israel attacked Gaza, but before that, some Gaza also, they attacked, or they threw bombs in or missiles in Israel. So just to retaliate those Hamas, Israel also has started taking retaliatory action and a massive attack against Gaza and Lebanon. Okay, so now the situation is very bad in the world, and the United Nations and the Security Council in particular is failing to control these. Okay, so it seems that without peace there cannot be a prosperity, and this is one of the major reasons behind the low or less achievement of the United Nations. Okay, so the conflicts and violence that are causing untold death, destruction and displacement and disruption across the world must end, and a new period of international relations that respects the principles of the UN Charter must begin. Okay. Secondly, if our commitments to leaving no one behind is to mean anything, we must unlock much greater financing and fiscal space for developing countries and secure a more equitable, representative and effective international financial system. Okay. Over the course of the next 18 months, through the Summit of the Future, the work of the G20 and international financial institutions, COP29, and Fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, we must deliver concrete changes to the international policies, instruments and institutions that greatly impact the flow of development finance. Thirdly, we must double down on those areas that can unlock transformative progress across the goals. Key transitions around energy, food and digital connectivity, underpinned by expanded access to social protection and decent jobs and education and skills for the future, are essential for rewiring economies to combat the triple planetary crisis and to reduce inequalities within and between countries. Achieving these objectives requires not only strengthened institutions and policy frameworks, but also robust investment pathways and strengthened support from the United Nations Development System, multilateral and regional development banks, as well as private investors. Okay, so I would like to say that peace should be given most importance. Okay, securing peace. Without peace, there can never be prosperity. And how far the goals have been achieved till 2024? You see, the 2024 progress assessment reveals the world is severely off track to achieve the Agenda 2030, as illustrated in some reports and in the figures of the progress report of the 2024 General Assembly published report. It says that out of 135 targets with trained data and additional insights from custodian agencies, only 17% are progressing as expected to be achieved by 2030. Nearly half, that is 48% only, exhibit moderate to severe deviations from the desired trajectory, with 30% showing marginal progress and 18% indicating moderate progress. Okay, alarmingly, 18% have stagnated and 17% have regressed below the 2015 baseline levels. Can you imagine? So, what is the situation of the world economy, world health, world poverty, world education? So, this is the situation, and I told you how we can overcome the challenges if the world leaders, particularly the rich countries, particularly the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, should take resolutions that they will reject the veto powers of themselves, and armament and all nuclear, biological weapons, nuclear weapons must be destructed by all the countries, those who are having, because those arms are a threat to the normal peace. So, with this, I expect that all the conscious people, all the policymakers, all the civil society members should come forward to put pressure on the United Nations to act accordingly. With these expectations, I would like to conclude here. Thank you. Thank you very much.